Good evening, and welcome to Sleep Time, where you can fall asleep listening to classic stories told in a calm, gentle manner that will help you relax and drift into dreamland. I'm Bob Neufeld. Tonight, Cinderella. Before we begin, if you like this episode, you can help others with similar interests find us by liking, subscribing, sharing, and commenting. If you would like to support with some pocket money, either once or once in a while, you'll find a link to Buy Me a Coffee in the notes below. And now, it's sleep time. So find your favorite safe place to sleep. Take a few long, slow, deep breaths and fall asleep to the Brothers Grimm. Cinderella. The wife of a rich man fell sick, and when she felt that her end drew nigh, she called her only daughter to her bedside and said, "Always be a good girl, and I will look down from heaven and watch over you." Soon afterwards, she shut her eyes and died. She was buried in the garden, and the little girl went every day to her grave and wept. She was always good and kind to everyone. The snow fell and spread a beautiful white covering over the grave. By the time the spring came and the sun had melted it away again, her father had married another wife. This new wife had 2 daughters of her own that she brought home with her. They were fair in face, but foul at heart, and it was now a sorry time for the poor little girl. "What does that good-for-nothing want in our parlor?" they said. "They who would eat bread should first earn it. Away with the kitchen maid." They took away her fine clothes and gave her an old gray frock to put on. They laughed at her and turned her into the kitchen. There she was forced to do hard work, to rise early before daylight, to bring the water, to make the fire, to cook, and to wash. Besides that, the sisters plagued her in all sorts of ways and laughed at her. In the evening, when she was tired, she had no bed to lie down on. She had to lie by the hearth among the ashes, and as this, of course, made her always dusty and dirty, they called her Cinderella. One day the father was going to the fair and asked his wife's daughters what he should bring them. "Fine clothes," said the first. "Pearls and diamonds," cried the second. "Now, child," he said to his own daughter, "what will you have?" "The first twig, dear father, that brushes against your hat when you turn your face to come homewards," she said. He bought for the first 2 the fine clothes and pearls and diamonds they had asked for. On his way home, as he rode through a green copse, a hazel twig brushed against him and almost pushed off his hat. He broke it off and brought it away, and when he got home, he gave it to his daughter. She took it, went to her mother's grave, and planted it there. She cried so much that it was watered with her tears, and there it grew and became a fine tree. 3 times every day she went to it and cried. Soon a little bird came and built its nest in the tree. It talked with her and watched over her. The king of that land announced a great feast, which was to last 3 days. Out of those who came to it, his son was to choose a bride for himself. Cinderella's 2 sisters were asked to come, so they called her up and said, "Now comb our hair, brush our shoes, and tie our sashes for us. We are going to dance at the king's feast." She did as she was told, but when all was done she could not help crying, for she would have so liked to have gone with them to the ball. At last she begged her stepmother very hard to let her go. "You, Cinderella," she said, "you who have nothing to wear, no clothes at all, and who cannot even dance. You want to go to the ball?" When Cinderella kept on begging, she said at last, to get rid of her, "I will throw this dish full of peas into the ash heap. If in 2 hours' time you have picked them all out, you shall go to the feast too." She threw the peas down among the ashes, but the little maiden ran out the back door into the garden and cried out, "Hither, hither, through the sky, turtle doves and linnets fly, blackbird, thrush, and chaffinch gay, hither, hither, haste away. One and all, come help me, quick, haste ye, peek, peek, peek." First came 2 white doves, flying in at the kitchen window. Next came 2 turtle doves, and after them came all the little birds under heaven, chirping and fluttering in. They flew down into the ashes. The little doves stooped their heads down and set to work, pick, 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 and then the others began to pick, 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 and among them all they soon picked out all the peas. They put them into a dish, but left the ashes. Long before the end of the 2 hours the work was quite done, and all flew out again at the windows. Cinderella brought the dish to her stepmother, overjoyed at the thought that now she would go to the ball. But her stepmother said, "No, no, no, you have no clothes and cannot dance. You shall not go." When Cinderella begged very hard to go, she said, "Oh, if you can in 1 hour's time pick 2 of those dishes of peas out of the ashes, you shall go too." And thus she thought she should at least get rid of her. So she shook 2 dishes of peas into the ashes. But the little maiden went out into the garden at the back of the house and cried out as before, "Hither, thither, through the sky, turtle doves and linnets fly, blackbird, thrush, and chaffinch gay, hither, hither, haste away. One and all, come help me, quick, haste ye, pick, pick, pick." First came 2 white doves in at the kitchen window, and next came 2 turtle doves. After them came all the little birds under heaven, chirping and hopping about. They flew down into the ashes, and the little doves put their heads down and set to work, pick, 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 and then the others began to pick, 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 and they put all the peas into the dishes and left all the ashes. Before half an hour's time all was done, and out they flew again. Cinderella took the dishes to her stepmother, rejoicing to think that she would now go to the ball. But her stepmother said, "It is all of no use. You cannot go. You have no clothes, and you cannot dance, and you would only put us to shame." Off she went with her 2 daughters to the ball. When all were gone, Cinderella went sorrowfully, sat down under the hazel tree, and cried out, "Shake, shake, hazel tree, gold and silver over me." Her friend the bird flew out of the tree and brought a gold and silver dress for her, and slippers of spangled silk. She put them on and followed her sisters to the feast. She looked so fine and beautiful in her rich clothes, they did not recognize her, and thought she must be some foreign princess. They never once thought of Cinderella, taking it for granted that she was at home in the dirt. The king's son soon came up to her, took her by the hand, and danced with her, and no one else. He never left her side. When anyone else came to ask her to dance, he said, "This lady is dancing with me." They danced till a late hour of the night. Then she wanted to go home. The king's son said, "I shall go and escort you to your home." He wanted to see where the beautiful maiden lived, but she slipped away from him and ran off towards home. As the prince followed her, she jumped into the pigeon house and shut the door. He waited till her father came home and told him that the unknown maiden, who had been at the feast, had hid herself in the pigeon house. But when they broke open the door, they found no one within, and as they came back into the house, Cinderella was lying, as she always did, in her dirty frock by the ashes. Her dim little lamp was burning in the chimney. She had run as quickly as she could through the pigeon house and onto the hazel tree, and had there taken off her beautiful clothes and put them beneath the tree, that the bird might carry them away. She had lain down again amid the ashes in her little grey frock. The next day, when the feast was again held, and her father, mother, and sisters were gone, Cinderella went to the hazel tree and said, "Shake, shake, hazel tree, gold and silver over me." The bird came and brought a finer dress than the one she had worn the day before. When she came in it to the ball, everyone was in awe of her beauty. The king's son, who was waiting for her, took her by the hand and danced with her. When anyone else asked her to dance, he said, as before, "This lady is dancing with me." When night came, she wanted to go home. The king's son followed her here as before, that he might see into what house she went. But she sprang away from him all at once into the garden behind her father's house. In this garden stood a fine large pear tree full of ripe fruit, and Cinderella, not knowing where else to hide herself, jumped up into it without being seen. The king's son lost sight of her and could not see where she had gone. He waited till her father came home and said to him, "The unknown lady who danced with me has slipped away. I think she must have sprung into the pear tree." The father thought to himself, "Can it be Cinderella?" He had an axe brought, and they cut down the tree. They found no one in it. When they came back into the kitchen, there lay Cinderella among the ashes. She had slipped down on the other side of the tree, carried her beautiful clothes back to the bird at the hazel tree, and put on her little grey frock. The third day, when her father and mother and sisters were gone, she went again into the garden and said, "Shake, shake, hazel tree, gold and silver over me." Her kind friend the bird brought a dress still finer than the former ones, and slippers which were all of gold, so that, when she came to the feast, no one knew what to say for wonder at her beauty. The king's son danced with nobody but her. When anyone else asked her to dance, he said, "This lady is my partner, sir." When night came, she wanted to go home. The king's son wanted to go with her, and said to himself, "I will not lose her this time." But she again slipped away from him, though in such a hurry that she dropped her left golden slipper upon the stairs. The prince took the shoe and went the next day to the king, his father, and said, "I will take for my wife the lady this golden slipper fits." Both the sisters were overjoyed to hear it, for they had beautiful feet, and had no doubt that they could wear the golden slipper. When the prince arrived at their house, the eldest went first into the room where the slipper was to try it on. Her mother stood by, but her big toe could not go into it. The shoe was altogether much too small for her. The mother gave her a knife and said, "Never mind, cut it off. When you are a queen, you will not care about toes. You will not want to walk." So the silly girl cut off her big toe, thus squeezed on the shoe, and went to the king's son. He took her for his bride, set her beside him on his horse, and rode away with her homewards. But on their way home they had to pass by the hazel tree that Cinderella had planted, and on the branch sat a little dove, singing, "Back again, back again, look to the shoe. The shoe is too small and not made for you. Prince, Prince, look again for thy bride, for she's not the true one that sits by thy side." The prince got down and looked at her foot. He saw by the blood that streamed from it what a trick she had played on him. He turned his horse round, and he brought the false bride back to her home, and said, "This is not the right bride. Let the other sister try and put on the slipper." She went into the room and got her foot into the shoe, all but the heel, which was too large. But her mother squeezed it in till blood came, and took her to the king's son. He set her as his bride by his side on his horse, and rode away with her. But when they came to the hazel tree, the little dove sat there still and sang, back again, look to the shoe. The shoe is too small and not made for you. Prince, Prince, look again for thy bride, for she's not the true one that sits by thy side. He looked down and saw that blood streamed so much from the shoe that her white stockings were quite red. He turned his horse and brought her also back again. This is not the true bride, he said to the father. Have you no other daughters? No, he said. Well, there is only a little dirty Cinderella here, a child of my first wife. I am sure she cannot be the bride. The prince told him to send her. The stepmother said, No, she is much too dirty. She will not dare to show herself. However, the prince would have her come. She first washed her face and hands and then went in and curtsied to him. He handed her the golden slipper. She took her clumsy shoe off her left foot and put on the golden slipper. It fit her as if it had been made for her. When he drew near and looked at her face, he recognized her and said, This is the right bride. The stepmother and both the sisters were shocked and turned pale with anger as he took Cinderella on his horse and rode away with her. When they came to the hazel tree, the white dove sang, Home, home, look at the shoe. Princess, the shoe was made for you. Prince, Prince, take home thy bride, for she is the true one that sits by thy side. When the dove had finished its song, it came flying. It perched upon her right shoulder and went home with her.